In the heart of the dense Amazon rainforest, where ancient trees intertwined their gnarled roots and the damp air hung heavy with the scent of earth and decay, lay a secret known to few, a lake untouched by sunlight, shrouded in perpetual mist and whispered about in hushed tones by the indigenous tribes. It was here, amidst the dense foliage that obscured the sky, that Sarah and Mark found themselves. The couple, seeking an adventure far removed from the bustling city life, had embarked on a journey deep into the Amazonian wilderness. Their guide, Javier, a weathered man with sun-worn skin and eyes that held the knowledge of generations, led them through the labyrinthine trails, cautioning them of the dangers that lurked beyond the familiar. "We camp here tonight," Javier announced, his voice low and tinged with an unspoken warning as they arrived at the edge of a small clearing. A palpable tension hung in the air, thickened by the encroaching shadows of dusk. Sarah's grip on Mark's hand tightened involuntarily, her gaze flickering nervously toward the murky depths that stretched beyond the trees. As they set up their tent beneath the looming canopy, Javier's words echoed in Sarah's mind. "Do not wander alone," he had cautioned, his expression grave. "The jungle is alive with spirits, and they do not take kindly to intruders." Night descended like a heavy curtain, and the forest came alive with a cacophony of unfamiliar sounds, strange cries and rustlings that seemed to emanate from every direction. Sarah and Mark huddled close by the crackling fire, seeking solace in its flickering warmth as they exchanged uneasy glances. "It's just the jungle," Mark reassured Sarah, his voice strained. "Javier's stories are meant to keep us cautious, that's all." But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes peering through the veil of darkness. She cast a wary glance toward the lake, its surface a mirror of shadows that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The air grew colder, the fire dwindling despite their efforts to stoke it higher. "We should get some sleep," Mark suggested, his attempt at nonchalance betrayed by the tension in his voice. Reluctantly, they retreated into the tent, its thin walls offering little comfort against the eerie silence that enveloped them. Sarah lay awake, her senses heightened as she listened to the symphony of the jungle, a haunting melody that seemed to ebb and flow with an unsettling rhythm. Hours passed in fitful slumber, until Sarah awoke with a start. A soft whispering filled the air, barely audible yet unmistakably present. She turned to wake Mark, but he lay motionless beside her, his features shrouded in the dim moonlight that filtered through the tent. "Mark," she whispered, shaking him gently. But he did not stir. The whispering grew louder, swelling into a chorus of voices that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the jungle itself. Sarah's heart raced as she scrambled out of the tent, her eyes wide with fear as she scanned the clearing. The lake beckoned to her, its surface now aglow with an ethereal light that pulsed rhythmically. Unable to resist its allure, Sarah approached cautiously, her bare feet sinking into the cool mud that lined its shore. The whispers grew louder, forming words that she could almost understand, a siren song that promised secrets buried deep within its depths. A figure emerged from the mist, a silhouette that hovered just beyond the water's edge. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized Javier, his face etched with sorrow as he gazed at her with pleading eyes. "Do not listen," he implored, his voice a ghostly echo. "The lake, it calls to those who are lost." Sarah stumbled backward, her mind reeling with confusion and terror. Memories of Javier's warnings flooded her thoughts, the tales of spirits that roamed the jungle, seeking souls to ensnare in their eternal embrace. "Mark," she cried out, her voice echoing through the clearing. But her words were swallowed by the darkness, swallowed by the malevolent presence that loomed ever closer. Suddenly, a hand grasped her shoulder, pulling her roughly away from the lake's edge. Mark stood before her, his eyes wide with fear as he pulled her into his arms. "We have to go," he urged, his voice urgent. "Now!" Together, they fled through the underbrush, their footsteps crashing through the tangled foliage as they raced toward the safety of the campsite. The whispers followed them, a haunting chorus that reverberated through the night air until, at last, they collapsed in exhaustion beneath the shelter of the trees. Dawn broke over the horizon, casting its golden light upon the clearing. Sarah and Mark packed their belongings in tense silence, their minds still haunted by the events of the night before. Javier approached them, his expression grave yet strangely relieved. "You have seen the lake," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "Few escape its grasp." Sarah shuddered at the memory, her gaze flickering toward the distant silhouette of the lake that lay beyond the trees. Though they had survived the night, she knew that the lake would forever linger in the depths of her mind, a place of mystery and terror that defied explanation. As they bid farewell to Javier and began their journey back to civilization, Sarah glanced over her shoulder one last time. The lake shimmered in the morning light, its surface serene yet undeniably foreboding, a testament to the untamed wilderness that had nearly claimed their lives. And as the sounds of the jungle faded into the distance, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if they had truly escaped the clutches of the lake, or if its dark secrets would continue to haunt them, lurking just beneath the surface of their memories. The village nestled at the edge of the forest had always lived under the shadow of the lake. Children grew up hearing tales of its mysteries and warnings from elders never to venture too close. The waters, once a lifeline for fishermen and a source of tranquility for the townsfolk, had become a nexus of fear and uncertainty. Legend had it that the lake was cursed, its origins steeped in tragedy. Long ago, a powerful sorcerer had roamed these lands, wielding dark magic and harboring a secret pact with the depths. In a fit of rage and desperation, the sorcerer had summoned a torrential storm that inundated the village, condemning it to a watery grave. Since then, the lake had become a repository for lost souls and malevolent spirits, bound by ancient woes and unresolved anguish. As dusk settled over the valley, casting long shadows across the water, the air grew thick with a palpable sense of foreboding. The villagers locked their doors and shuttered their windows, wary of what lurked in the darkness beyond. Lights flickered ominously on the horizon, dancing like will-o'-the-wisps leading unwary travelers astray. Among the villagers, there was one who dared to defy the warnings, a young woman named Elara, whose curiosity outweighed her fear. She had grown up listening to the tales of the lake, her imagination fueled by whispered accounts of spectral sightings and inexplicable phenomena. Elara's dreams were haunted by visions of submerged ruins and the anguished faces of those who had perished in the flood. One moonless night, driven by an insatiable longing to unravel the mysteries of the lake, Elara embarked on a clandestine journey. Clutching a lantern and guided by a map she had unearthed in her grandmother's attic, she ventured into the heart of the forest, where gnarled branches intertwined like skeletal fingers and the silence was broken only by the mournful cry of an owl. The path grew treacherous as she approached the lake, the ground damp and slippery beneath her feet. A chill wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a faint, otherworldly melody that sent shivers down her spine. The closer she came to the water's edge, the more pronounced the feeling of being watched became, as if unseen eyes followed her every move. At last, Elara reached the shore, her heart pounding in her chest. The surface of the lake lay before her, shimmering with an eerie luminosity that seemed to emanate from deep within. Shadows danced upon the water, their forms shifting and merging in a macabre ballet. Elara hesitated, her breath catching in her throat, as a sense of dread washed over her like a tidal wave. Then, from the depths of the lake, a voice whispered, a soft, plaintive murmur that echoed through the silence. Elara's pulse quickened as she strained to discern the words, her mind reeling with a mixture of fear and fascination. Was it the wind playing tricks on her ears, or had she truly awakened something ancient and malevolent with her presence? Before she could contemplate further, a figure emerged from the mist, a spectral apparition with eyes that glowed like twin orbs of fire. It hovered above the water, its form ethereal and translucent, yet pulsing with a sinister energy that seemed to permeate the very air around it. Elara's grip tightened on the lantern as she struggled to comprehend the unearthly sight before her. "You have awakened us," the spirit intoned, its voice echoing with 1,000 whispers. "For centuries, we have slumbered beneath these waters, bound by a curse that knows no mercy. Now, you must bear witness to the price of your curiosity." Elara's legs trembled beneath her as she stood transfixed, unable to tear her gaze away from the spectral figure. Around her, the forest seemed to hold its breath, the trees leaning in as if to listen to the unfolding drama. The lake itself appeared to swell with unseen currents, as if responding to the ancient entity's presence. You seek knowledge, the spirit continued, its voice growing louder and more commanding. But knowledge comes with a price. Are you prepared to pay it? Elara's mind raced as she weighed her options. Fear clawed at her insides, threatening to overwhelm her senses, but a fierce determination burned within her heart. She had come too far to turn back now, to retreat into the safety of ignorance. With a trembling hand, she raised the lantern high above her head, its light casting long shadows across the water. I seek the truth, she declared, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging within. Whatever the cost may be. The spirit regarded her with an inscrutable expression, its luminous eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, it extended a spectral hand toward Elara, beckoning her closer. She hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Then come, the spirit said, its voice reverberating with ancient wisdom. Cross the threshold between the worlds and witness the fate that awaits those who dare to defy the mysteries of the lake. As Elara crossed the threshold, the world around her seemed to blur and shift, reality bending and twisting like a fever dream. The forest faded into mist, the ground beneath her feet giving way to a dark, swirling abyss. She felt herself falling, tumbling through a vortex of light and shadow, until at last, she landed on solid ground with a jolt that knocked the breath from her lungs. When she opened her eyes, Elara found herself standing amidst the ruins of a forgotten village, its crumbling buildings obscured by vines and moss. The air was thick with the scent of decay, the silence broken only by the distant cry of a loon. Before her stretched a desolate landscape, haunted by the echoes of lives long lost to the relentless passage of time. You have entered the realm of the forgotten, the spirit's voice echoed in her mind. Here lies the truth you sought, a testament to the price of curiosity. Elara's heart sunk as she surveyed the ruins, her eyes drawn to a crumbling archway adorned with faded symbols and inscriptions. She approached it cautiously, her footsteps echoing hollowly on the uneven cobblestones. As she reached out to touch the ancient stone, a surge of energy coursed through her, sending visions flashing before her eyes. She saw the villagers, their faces contorted in anguish as the floodwaters rose around them, their cries lost in the roar of the storm. She saw the sorcerer, consumed by guilt and remorse, his desperate attempt to harness the power of the lake resulting in tragedy beyond measure. And she saw herself, standing on the shore centuries later, a witness to the legacy of sorrow and suffering that had haunted the lake for generations. With a gasp, Elara staggered back from the archway, her mind reeling from the intensity of the visions. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she struggled to come to terms with the revelations that had been thrust upon her. The weight of centuries of sorrow pressed down upon her shoulders, threatening to crush her spirit beneath its unbearable burden. You have seen the truth, the spirit's voice whispered in her ear. Now, you must decide what to do with it. Elara turned to face the spirit, her expression resolute despite the tears that streamed down her cheeks. I will bear witness, she vowed, her voice trembling with emotion. I will tell their story, so that they may finally find peace. The spirit regarded her with a mixture of sadness and approval, its luminous eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Then, with a solemn nod, it began to fade, its form dissolving into wisps of ethereal light. The ruins around Elara shimmered and shifted, the spectral village melting away like mist in the morning sun. When Elara opened her eyes again, she found herself standing once more on the shore of the lake, the moon hanging low in the sky above. The air was still and quiet, the only sound the gentle lapping of water against the shore. She felt a sense of peace settle over her, a quiet resolve to honor the memories of those who had perished in the flood. And so, as dawn broke over the horizon, Elara returned to the village, her heart heavy with the weight of the knowledge she had gained. She vowed to preserve the stories of the lake, to ensure that future generations would remember the sacrifices made and the lessons learned. For the lake had taught her not only the power of curiosity, but also the importance of compassion and understanding in the face of darkness. As she walked through the village streets, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the canopy above, Elara knew that she had been forever changed by her encounter with the scary lake. And though the mysteries of its depths would continue to haunt her dreams, she took solace in the knowledge that she had discovered the truth, and in doing so, had brought a measure of peace to the restless spirits that dwelled within.